Well, I usually ask a question of my guests when they're on. So, Connor, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you had to put yourself on a spectrum from clueless to conscious, the title of the podcast, where are you right now in this moment? No
Oh
judgment,
man.
because your face just got a little worried.
Right. Well, hopefully no judgment, but I mean, probably towards the middle. I'd say closer to Clueless though, to be honest.
Is that a today thing? Is that a where you're at in general
Uh,
thing?
I think it's in general, but I think we're moving in the right direction. So that's good.
That is good. That is good. Moving towards consciousness, right?
Yes. And see, maybe we'll get further today.
Yeah, let's see what we can do here in the next like 45 minutes.
Yeah, big boost.
All right. Well, we have connected and been connected for a while and have actually worked on a project together. It's so cool
Yes.
how the internet can be a wild place, but it can also be a very cool place
Right?
to connect with vegans and environmentalists and the like. So tell me a little bit about what you do and your organization.
Yeah, so we started Vindivi last year. Um, so far, the original goal was for the podcast, for a blog, and then like a YouTube channel for like shorter videos and shorter topics than a podcast. And so we had it going pretty far until the other two backed out. So we're just kind of going through. So I've kind of vamped the blog website for where I'm the author instead of the partner. And then YouTube, I have a few videos recorded with the other partner, and then I'll just have to start making shorter ones, which shouldn't be hard because some topics just you can't go on for 45 minutes sometimes. So, or it's easier, people receive it better, it's shorter.
Totally,
Um,
totally.
yeah. And so I'm hopefully going to get that up by the end of the year. The blog should be soon because I think I'm just kind of repurpose some of the podcast episodes into blogs as well. And that's an easier start in. And then from there, I think we have merch up and then I think products. I've collected a lot of plastic, so I'm gonna try to make beads and stuff out of that for jewelry and stuff. And so, I mean, it's really more mission driven. So like we have water bottles and stuff reusable, and I keep them pretty close to cost because I want people to buy them too.
So let me try and summarize, or maybe you can do that for me, right? It's your
Okay.
company. But you're really driven by your mission, which I know is on your website. So all of the things you're doing are because of a commitment to the earth and to the animals, correct?
Yes, definitely. Trying to do everything I can more for the animals, earth, secondary, but very important as well. And so I think, especially nowadays with the internet, as you mentioned, media is a very important and very impactful way to do it. And it's also not as, capital intensive. And so you can get it started there. Hopefully we build off of that.
Hmm. So where did your vegan journey begin? Because to be sitting here and on a podcast and creating this organization that took a starting place. So where was that for you?
Right. Um, I've always thought of myself as a huge animal lover. And so I think it was around 2013-ish or 2014 was when it really started hitting like I couldn't separate the meal from the
Mm.
animal. And so that was getting really hard. And I started following some more like the vegan pages, and that helped a lot and gave me more information and just kind of, a lot of them are very kind of sad or impactful videos and stuff they post. So that's hard. And so I went vegetarian first, um, because I lived with my family at that time. And so, it's hard to go straight in. And also I didn't really know how to tell them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah. So I went vegetarian for almost a year, which is also hard right in the middle of high school, pressure,
Oh,
normal things.
wow.
Yeah. And so then we went to Chicago, had a nice, pizza with the family. And then when we got back around June of the next year, I went vegan. And ever since, other than a few mistakes at the beginning, because you realize there are a lot more things than you think you can eat.
Oh my gosh, there's milk powder in the most outrageous of places.
Yes, Funyuns. Funyuns killed me. I loved Funyuns. So we got the like Costco box that had Doritos and Lay's and things. And so I knew which ones I couldn't have,
Yep.
I thought. And then I ate all the Funyuns and then I checked and I was like, whey powder? After you eat the whole box of them.
Yep. No, totally have been there. You hear that, Funyuns? You're screwing up lives.
Right? See? But Oreos, surprise on the good side.
A true surprise on the good side and a go-to of mine, I will admit.
Yes.
Probably too much of my food
Yeah.
pyramid, but
We try our best.
we do our best. Yes, we do our best. So I think it is really fascinating to think about having awareness. Maybe I'm just thinking of my own experience, but going vegan as a high schooler and making that
Yeah.
decision young, not only with still living with your family, but it's also just a time where I don't know, you're questioning everything and like nothing makes sense.
Right.
And what is the world, right? So, how was that as
Yes.
a teenager to make that decision? What did your friends and family think?
It's a little interesting. Yeah. Thankfully, my family was super supportive from the beginning. And, my mom, the worrying one, looked into it a lot more, wanted to make sure that the proteins and the vitamins and everything was there. So that's helpful because I think that's a mistake or overlooked sometimes when people go vegan is they don't really know how to eat vegan. They don't know how to
Yeah,
replace the vitamins and stuff. And so
totally.
sometimes they fall back. So that helped. Friends have been better than you would think, I guess. You always get the jokes every once in a while, but as long as they're friends, it's not bad intentions. So that's good. The only thing that got me was I think in the beginning, the first few years, I think my best friend told more people I was vegan than I told I was vegan. So it's like, come on, man.
Oh,
Just
why
like,
is that so classic? Oh, my friend's vegan. He can't have that. And you're like, I
yeah, right.
didn't bring that up.
But it's like even worse. It's not even at like restaurants sometimes. It's just like we hang out with someone new and they're like, he's vegan. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything?
Oh, wow. Like it's like you should just like wear a tag with it on there.
Right. Yeah, I was the trophy. I was the vegan friend. I think
The
maybe it made him
trophy.
feel cool or special. But yes.
Real tokenized.
Yeah. But yeah, so during high school, definitely an interesting time. Because especially a lot of people aren't really thoughtful. They don't really care how you feel sometimes. So I think one of the biggest things I did was senior year. We had to do it like a persuasive speech, and one of the topics was eating less meat, and I was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, so that was when I was
Yeah.
just like, we're gonna do it, and so I did it, and people don't care enough, but I think I knew my class well enough that they didn't like make fun of me for it, but yeah, some of the lines don't really hit the same for them. Like comparing the dog to the pig.
Right. That cognitive dissonance is strong, man.
Right. Yeah, because I think what I used was like, if the pig was your dog, would you eat it? Or like, that like the
Right,
bacon and the
right.
dog, and they're always like, yeah, I totally would. And I'm like,
You're like,
okay,
that's disturbing.
yeah, but it was fun overall. It was a very easy speech to write, so that was good.
What a sensibility to come out of high school with. I'm curious too, as presenting male in this world and in the veganism world, toxic masculinity and all of that is so interesting to me.
Uh,
And the intersection with veganism can sometimes be wild. Have you had any of those experiences?
I don't think I've run into any yet where it's like, oh, you don't eat meat, you're not a man.
Hmm.
Sometimes, sometimes that's one of like the few jokes that throw from my friends, which is fine because it's just funny. They no bad intentions. But from there, I think that happens a lot more on the internet because I think well, I know
Yeah.
people just don't care on the internet and they say things they wouldn't really tell you in real life for it.
And
But
there's
yeah, no,
probably
it's
also a
definitely
bit of
different.
a generation shift too, right? Where
Oh yeah,
um
like the older generation doesn't. Yeah,
yeah,
my
and
parents,
that's like a big generalization, obviously, but just in
right, of
general,
course.
the idea of one, veganism, and two, toxic
Yeah,
masculinity, two are like we're not there, but we've like moved along on those two trains in
yeah,
society.
yeah. I think we're shifting it. Yeah. So like my parents totally understand. I think the older generation, they've just been doing it longer, so it's more of their
Right.
norm.
Totally.
But my parents, when I'm home, they'll eat vegan. So a lot of the times it's
Hmm.
vegan. Sometimes my dad can't get over the cheese, so he just shreds the cheese over the vegan meal, but that's a lot closer. a lot
Oh,
closer.
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Do you have any other success stories in your life where people that were like, "Oh my gosh, you're the reason. You're the reason, bro."
I was very close. My cousin, who lives down in San Diego as well, I think he was vegetarian for over a year, but he relapsed. But still
Relapsed.
closer. He's closer. He still eats a lot less than he would. He always has like vegan products over when I come over and stuff. So very good progress. Still proud of him,
Yeah,
but we're
absolutely. I
so
had
close.
a great conversation with a guest the other day that when I first went vegan, I was like, oh my gosh, the world is opened up to me. Everything was a lie.
Mm,
Everyone listened to me. This is insane. And if people didn't want to listen to me bark at them for some reason, I
right.
was upset by that,
Hmm.
obviously. Not a very helpful response. But I think just realizing like the way I talk about it and the way things come
Hmm.
across to different types of people has been helpful in having those conversations.
Yeah, that's for
And I
sure. You
and I
definitely have to
had
know your
this
audience.
yeah, sorry, I lost myself in that my own train of thought. But with that guest that I had on the podcast, they just made this point about how when you live in that way where it's like all or nothing, you're just not allowing space for anyone to try, right? Like no one wants
Right.
to try if there's no allowance of failure.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't, it's so funny because I needed that, but then as soon as I kind of was learning all about this, I forgot that.
Yeah. No,
But yeah, it's an important thing to stick in your mind when you're frustrated, when your friends that are like, "Oh, I don't feel good," and you're like, "I know what can help."
right. Yeah, you can't always be the hero.
Ugh,
Can't jump in.
I
But yeah, no, that was
suppose, Connor, I
yeah,
suppose.
that was interesting because I was thinking about bringing up you wrote the angry vegan phase for the guide.
Hmm.
And so that's basically what you were just talking about. I didn't know if you wanted to just talk a little bit about how you kind of ways you think helped that or what you did to get through that.
Sure, absolutely. Before we get there, should we talk about the
Mhm.
guide?
Sure.
Have we done
We
that
could,
yet?
yeah. I think we mentioned it,
Mentioned it.
but we
Okay,
didn't go
so
through anything.
yeah, we didn't go to, and then I'll let you take the helm on that one, and I'll go into my angry vegan phase.
So yeah, we put together the vegan guide. It's called, I think, Simplify Your Vegan Journey. We here and then you too as well after. We just wanted to put together a free guide. You don't have to pay, nothing like that. There's not even gonna be ads on it. The only thing I did was put two placements in for our first two interviews.
Hmm.
Um, so just kind of make it easier for people looking to go vegan, people that are vegan and need help, or people kind of making the transition. And so we put the main reasons for it, like for the animals, for the environment, for humanity. We put a lot of different things in, like yours, the angry vegan phase. We put Q&As that I asked around for. We have different tips for cutting out the foods, the meat, and then the eggs and dairy, I think, separate section, and then cutting out even the non-food items, which is
Hmm.
harder to do, especially because you might already have some big items like a car with leather seats that you can't just kind of get rid of overnight.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of letting them know there in that section too that's fine. Like if you have a leather seated car, you're still vegan. Just, next time you buy a car, you don't buy one with leather seats, preferably.
Yeah, which
Mm.
totally harkens back to that idea, right? Of like, if we don't allow for this to be like a spectrum and for people to explore it and to do what they can, then everyone's going to be like, well, fuck you. I can't buy a
Oh,
new
yes, for
car
sure.
tomorrow. Like,
Right. And I think the other huge one is maybe if they're playing sports, like baseball's very
mm,
leather heavy, or especially medications. Like a lot of medications are animal tested, and you can't go around that
yep.
because it's a required, even for the companies, it's required. And it's not like there's just an option for you to be like, I'm going to stop taking my meds. It's probably
Hmm.
not the best thing to do. So
Right.
we put that in there. I put five or six of my favorite recipes in there, both
They're
dinner
good.
and dessert. So
Hmm.
those are good. So yeah, just basically a guide that can help them out free. We put a summarized version in case they don't want to read through 30 pages. But of course, you have to read the full version to get all the pictures. That's the bonus for reading through the other one.
Yeah, always lots of good pictures. It is
Yeah.
it is a really great guide, and I appreciate that you were so committed to like really making it expansive and really being like, if this thing is going to go out, it's going to be as much information as we can, and not like, I mean, 30 pages, but not in an overwhelming way, even, but
Right.
just as much as like, let's touch on all the things that come up, like
Right.
let's have seeds planted for all those things that might come up so they can harken back to it.
Of course, yes. And so, I mean, it sounds like a lot when you say 30 pages, and that is a lot, but it also comes down to like there's so many different things that like most sections are only maybe a page and a half, or a page and a half, which is not a whole lot. Um,
Right.
and the good thing is it is an interactive table of content, so you don't have to scroll through 30 pages. You can click where you want to go. And maybe you don't feel like reading for the animals today and you just want to read for the environment.
Yeah,
People aren't going to
totally.
read through it all the time. So
And that
that's
actually
something.
might be like a good tip if I'm a believer in doing what you can. And sometimes,
Uh-huh.
I don't know about you, but like I'll get really into something and then I'm really into it and learning all about it and blah, 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 go all the way in. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes that can get really overwhelming. Like if this is
Oh
all new
yeah.
information to you, maybe you don't need to read 30 pages and be worried that
Right.
you're like a terrible person, because you're not. But sometimes when you learn new things and how ways you could be better, the first kind of instinct is to be like, oh, I'm shitty. I should have
Oh
been doing
yeah.
this. And so that is a good tip, almost just like, even if whether it's that guide or something else in this kind of realm, you don't have to
Right.
do it all at once.
Right. Sections at a time. Let
Hmm.
yourself process it. Um, but yeah, just it's a lot of information, then a lot of tips that we could provide. Big questions. I think you saw there's a misconception section that has a few in there.
Yep.
So, hopefully it helps. The goal here is just if we make one person vegan and they make one person vegan, it's a domino. So,
Yeah, it's a really great resource for consciously clueless listeners. It'll be available to download when you're listening to this.
yes. At the same time, the podcast goes out on the
Yeah, it's
13th.
it's going to be really exciting because I think people really are interested in veganism in general. Like when I do polls
Mm,
on my stories, there is a lot of interest, but there's also just a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of fear because there are some shitty vegan accounts that make you
yeah.
feel terrible. Let's be honest.
Yes. Judgment is a hard part. I don't,
Yes.
maybe some people get stuck in that angry phase permanently, and I think
Mm,
some do. But yeah,
that's a
that's the
good
other
way to put
reason.
it.
Yeah. And so that's why I wanted to start Who's Judging the podcast too, is because I mean, I just want to put out there that we don't all judge. It's like, who's judging? Just come learn. We're not here to judge you. And, hopefully that helps out.
I
Because,
think
like
that's
you said,
really, oh, sorry, go.
oh, wait, no, just like as you were saying, a lot of people are scared of judgment because they have been judged.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and that was one of the other reasons I created this podcast is I I went vegan and then I got interested in environmentalism. And so I kind of dove into like sustainability and everything. And I thought that I had to keep all my trash in a jar for the year or whatever else. I was just like,
Uh-huh.
this is, I don't know, I guess what I'm finding isn't accessible. So I was like, maybe I'll just start a podcast and have conversations about it that feel a little bit less like judgment. So
Right.
I'm
No,
glad we
that's a good idea.
connected.
Right. Yeah, there we go. I think, you responded to the tweet when I asked for guests, I think, right? I think, and then we went from there. I want to
Is that
say.
I'm not even on Twitter
Oh,
slash
you're
X
not.
slash whatever. No,
Interesting.
anymore. I
Never? Oh,
was.
okay.
No, 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 I was.
Got
I'm
it.
just gonna say I deleted it and now I don't
Oh,
even
got it.
remember. That sounds like a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's what happened. And then I think it was just because you have the whole consciousness aspect on yours that I was like, you know what? I think the guide could use that. I don't know anything about it. I'm consciously clueless.
Well, I really appreciated it because I loved the idea and I loved of you asking for me to bring that perspective, which going
Uh,
back to that kind of like consciousness, that mindfulness, that was the conversation about the angry vegan phase, right? Is
yes.
to go back to your question. Um, I've talked about this at nauseum on my podcast, and listeners are rolling their eyes at this point. But there often is. It's a fact. I think there's an angry, call it what you want, but there's some sort of reckoning you do
Mhm.
when you learn a really new big thing. Like, I remember going to college and learning some things that my privilege allowed me to ignore for a really long time. And then I'm like,
Mhm.
well, I'm pissed. Like, I'm pissed that these sexual assault numbers are so high. I'm pissed that XYZ, right? So there's this reckoning
Right.
that happens when you learn things you become passionate about. So I don't think it's a bad thing, but if you
But
get,
you have to get through it.
yeah, if you get stuck in just being really pissed off, you're going to be unhealthy and you're not going to be very effective.
Right. Yeah. Sounds right.
Yeah. And again, it's not a judgment because I think that's a
Mm.
natural response to learning big things about the world. It's just
Yeah.
that's where, for me, the mindfulness piece comes in. Like, am I checking in with my mental health and my own mindfulness practices? So I'm not stuck in that and I can check myself a little quicker.
Right. I think it's also just really hard when you are super passionate about something and like the people around you don't seem to care at all. And I think that's an
Mm,
aspect too. But as you're saying, it's like being in that phase is not going to get them to care about it anymore. You're
right.
going to push them further.
So how do you handle that situation? Like, if you have people around you that are just
Mm.
not feeling the vibe.
I think I have a few methods. The first one that I use a lot is I just don't bring up vegan topics a lot around people.
Mm,
They know I'm vegan. I know they know I'm vegan. That's it. So like, one of the events I went to recently with one of my friends who we've been to quite together a lot because he had his wedding. So, we had the baby shower, everything
yeah.
for that. And so they started asking me questions when we were sitting at the tables. And so like I'm totally fine answering, but I just typically I'm not the one to bring it up. So like if they ask, I'll go in or, I just try to think about how I was before, kind of.
Yeah.
I think that's a way to do it. Um, I also just kind of read the room. Like you can tell if someone's asking and wants to know more, if they're asking kind of just to, make fun of you, like hear it and be like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I
They're
think
like
it's pretty
setting
easy to
you up
tell.
to be a punchline.
Yeah, I think it's easy to tell. So when they're genuinely curious, I answer their questions. And
So, oh, yeah, go.
oh yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it was actually helpful because one of the previous episodes was on like, do animals have feelings and different things like that. And that
Mm,
was one of the questions that they asked me is like, did I feel that animals, like our dogs and everything, had the same feelings like towards us that we had towards them? And so I've made an episode of it. I was like, that's a pretty good topic, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah. So I went into that with different animals, dogs, pigs, cows, because I don't think people know how intelligent animals are.
That's something I say all the time when, like, I'm with a friend or someone's like, oh, look at this pig video. I'm like, how smart they are?
Yeah.
Like stuff like that. Like, not trying to be too pushy, but just be like,
Uh,
oh my gosh, yeah. Do you know that they're like smarter than dogs?
yeah. But it's like nobody ever teaches you that.
Isn't it
They
wild
just
how
teach them
like
as farm animals.
systematic it is
Right.
to learn
Mm-hmm.
these certain things? Where did you grow up? Can I ask?
San Diego.
It is San Diego. Okay, so
Yeah.
I think that is part of it too, with like, I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. You please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm in Minnesota in the Midwest, like in the
Okay.
woods, an hour from Canada. So like
Uh,
veganism is a different conversation than it is in San Diego,
Most likely, yeah.
right? Like that's a safe assumption.
Uh, I would say so.
So it's so interesting to think about like that kind of sensibility of even having the language at an earlier age to
Uh,
know what that is or anything like that. It's so interesting. Yeah, the sociologist in me from way back when is like, oh, that would be so interesting to run numbers regionally on the age people become vegan. But
yeah.
I bet there's something there too.
Yeah, I would assume California, Southern California probably would have some pretty young numbers there.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I think we're more open for those kind of conversations here. I would think a lot of people would even say they support the cause, but like wouldn't go vegan themselves, which is
Totally.
one of the frustrating things. But at least they're willing to listen to it and hear about it. So it's a step.
So if someone says to you, wow, dude, you seem to really be passionate about this vegan thing. Like, what's your goal here? What do you want to do? Why do you care so much?
Man, yeah.
What's
I
your
think,
elevator speech?
I think what I've always said is I just want to make one person vegan. Like if I make one person vegan because of this thing, that's more than I would have if I didn't start this. So
Mm,
obviously, I want 100,000 people to go vegan because of this. But if I make one, that's still a bigger impact than if I didn't do it. So
yeah.
that's what I'd probably say. Make one person vegan. Then if they become passionate about it, go there. But also even people like my coworkers and stuff. I have multiple coworkers that listen to like every episode that comes out. So it still informs them and maybe like loosens their feelings about it. But yeah,
Yes, totally. I think that's a really good way to say it. Like loosens the grips of the societal norms that we were taught in that
right,
area, right? Where you're like, well, I trust Connor, I trust Carly, like your friends that listen because they're
right.
like, I don't know, she's not a total asshole. I think she probably has something good to say about this. Someone stopped me in my local co-op the other day to tell me that they're trying really hard, not totally there, but trying to go vegan because of the podcast. And like
There
you
you
said, it
go.
was just like, shit, man, people are listening. It's easy to forget.
Right. It's a good feeling, especially when it's people not just people from the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, I think they listen with a different intent. Like you're like, they're like, oh, that's Connor. And then they listen a lot more intensely than someone who's just, drifting by on the internet.
Totally. Totally. So on the podcast, you who's judging, you've had some really fun guests and really like cool conversations like the one you were talking about, the
Yeah.
one of the more recent episodes. What is like one or two things that have just like really surprised you or like some of the craziest things you've learned?
Some of the fun ones we got on a guy from India who makes his own Indian vegan food, and he has a series. He does it on Instagram, Herbivorian. And that
Mm,
was really cool because we had a whole bunch of jokes where it's like he makes super spicy food. But I think that's also kind of cool when you see like not just people making vegan food, but like vegan food from like their culture and sharing
yeah.
it. And it was also just interesting because I guess I didn't realize that like the two sides, I think it's West India, whatever, the two
Mm-hmm.
in Indias essentially are like totally different. Because I always thought of India as like they don't eat cow, but I guess that's
Mm-hmm.
only like one part of India.
Yeah, our classic, I mean, painting a broad brush here, but our
Yes.
classic education in this fine country does not do us well for knowing knowledge of many other peoples.
No. But yeah, so I thought that was interesting. But it was cool to see that. We also did Lucia's vegan lifestyle. And so she
Oh,
runs, I think, the only like broadcasted vegan TV show. And so that
that's
was pretty
wild.
cool. Yeah. That one was fun. She's really cool. Has a whole she does more of like I guess like lifestyle, like different brands and
Mm-hmm.
stuff more than food. And so I think that's a cool aspect that people forget about too. So that one was cool. I did one that wasn't vegan, but it was Green Spark. It was their COO, I think. It's kind of
That
like to
does sound
help a
familiar.
business become more like eco-friendly. It's like an eco-friendly
Okay.
one. And so that interview was cool. I think that was my first interview, and that one's like not even on video. So that one was fun. But yeah, so just a lot, just hearing different people from different countries and different cultures talking about it is pretty cool.
Yeah,
And so yeah,
totally.
so it's been fun so far. I don't like public speaking, but it's been fun having conversations with different vegans. Like, you learn more about them and you find more people. So like we've
Well,
actually kept in touch.
yeah, I love the guests that you meet that you like keep in touch and you chat with,
Hmm.
or there's like a few people I've like texted and
Yeah.
just, it's so funny how that happens. But um, I gotta ask, if you don't like public speaking, why did you start a podcast?
Maybe part of it was to get through that.
Got
Um,
it. Got it. Like shock
you know,
therapy.
yeah, and I don't think I really intended a whole lot of interviews either from the beginning. It was supposed to be like me and my friend talking about it, maybe. And it's easier like when this is only, I think, the second one on video that I've done by myself because my partner used to be here. And so like with a partner, it's easier because you could bounce off or like, well, they're talking, you can think of a
Totally.
question. Um, so yeah, that's easier with the group, but maybe to just shock it out. Also, I think I like talking in front of people I'm comfortable with. So um, I guess just getting the thoughts out. I wanted to do something vegan rather than
Yeah.
just be vegan. And so I kind of planned all of this out during COVID, a very convenient time to have
Same.
a lot of time on your hands, you know. And so I mean, I planned it out extensively, and then last year I was just like, I actually have to do it. I have
Oh,
a
you
real bad
really did
habit.
plan and like you
Yeah.
I Googled how do you start a podcast and then was like, I'll figure this out.
Well, see, I planned everything out because I didn't have a whole lot then. So I was like, I want to have the podcast, I want to have the YouTube, this and this and this, and I want to kind of like work with these people. And I tried like fishing out who would be interested in doing stuff. And then it came to like 2022, and I was like, are we really going to do this? I have a really bad habit of like, I love planning stuff. And then it comes to like taking those hard steps. I'm like, So I was like, we're going to do this. And then I just bought everything. And I'm kind of really bad financially. Like I like holding on to my money. I don't like spending my money. So I was
Yeah,
like,
I feel that.
if I buy it, I'm not going to want to waste it. So I just bought everything and I was like, well, now we got to use it.
Dude, I so relate to that. And I hope you know that question was not more of a like, well, then why did you start a podcast? That's
Right.
not how I meant it. I was just more
Oh,
like,
I know.
how are you okay with this? Because I think you sound like you enjoy yourself when you're interviewing people and you're doing a great job now. I know it must be weird.
Thank you.
I've only ever been by myself, so I'm like, la da da da
Right. You're
da,
used to it.
like I don't know,
Yeah.
only child syndrome or something too. But it must be weird to now transition to being kind of a host. So I think you're gonna do great
Yeah.
though.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it is wild to talk to some people that end up as guests, especially sometimes it's like you think you're going to talk about one thing and then they
Hmm.
share. I don't know, it's so fun to connect with people like you said, like people who are vegan or people that care about the environment, but in all these different ways, like fashion
Right.
and all these different things. It's so fun.
Right. And I think it's good as a podcast because everybody hears, the normal vegan stuff over and over again. So it's kind of
Totally.
cool if you grab some like intriguing views on it or ways people go about it. So that was fun. Pretty much.
Do you have any, since you're a planner, do you have any
Uh-huh.
big plans or advancements that you can tease at, or are you trying to kind of get stable? I know you said the blog's coming back
Yeah.
and the YouTube channel probably.
Yes. Hopefully YouTube channel. Like I mentioned earlier, I really want to get into like kind of like a products kind of division type thing. And so I do have, I guess, my jar of trash like years before. No, but it's just
Yeah,
plastic. So I have bottle caps, kind of like the thin plastic people like they put in the packages and package things in. And I'm looking at ways to turn those into beads and make bracelets, necklaces, stuff like that. Um, cheap, just kind of, with the eco side of things, eco-friendly instead of vegan. So that should be fun.
I love that. I have
Yeah.
an account. I have, if I don't do it, remind me that I
Hmm.
have to send you on Instagram. There's a woman I've been following forever and she makes beautiful jewelry out of plastic she
Uh-huh.
finds at the beach.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's very good because like plastic does not get recycled.
Hmm.
And I don't think people realize that because everyone throws in recycling or whatever. But it's like aluminum gets recycled a lot, almost all of it. But plastic is very small
Yep.
amount of it. So yeah, so I mean, if it worked out, obviously I'd try to do things like that, like other things I'd have to source more. But it's fun to even if it just offsets my plastic impact, selling it would still
Right.
be very good.
You must have a
Beyond
business
that,
mind. Are you business
yes, yes,
minded? Like is that what were you a business major? You're giving
I
business major
am.
vibes.
I'm just finishing my business major. Yeah,
Yeah, there it is.
next spring. Yep.
Good for you. That's awesome. I mean that as a compliment because you are
Right.
so organized with your plans. I think it's
Hmm.
incredible and it like shows in your work when you go to your website. I'm like, damn, this is professional.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think beyond that, just kind of like big out there ideas that I need to, make some money before I got into that. Beyond that, I did change one of my pages to like a resource hub that I'm gonna put out with this guide, like different. I would want to get more resources going, which would be fun. So yeah, I think products is the next big thing coming out. So that should be on the lookout.
I love that. Well, stay tuned, everybody, for that.
Yes, hopefully they go good.
Do
But
you have anything that you want to share with your listeners, my listeners, since we're doing this episode together that I haven't given you space for, that you're like, this thing?
well, I guess an important one would in the guide for finding other vegans, which was another important section that
Mm,
you wrote, I think.
yep.
you put to that you could even like a Facebook group or your Patreon. So I thought maybe you'd want to explain kind of like what goes on in your Patreon and why that would be helpful for them.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. I think the one thing I've been lucky to have is my best friend growing up went vegan when we were in like middle school. Obviously didn't listen very closely to her for a very long time. But when I went vegan, I was like, got my person. And that's not necessarily
Uh,
normal. And I started hearing and talking to other people that were just like, oh yeah, no one in my life will talk to me about this
yeah,
or whatever. And it's just so important, I realized, to have a space where you can explore these things and ask questions and not feel stupid, and just have other people that like get it, that you're like, how annoying is it to only get fries and a side salad? Like you can
right.
relate to someone about this. So
Mhm,
I think finding community, finding Facebook, finding some friends, or for example, of course, I'm going to plug myself here, is
mhm.
patreon.com/consciouslycarly is another form of community there, where I have like monthly live calls to teach us things about conscious living. Last month, I had a call and we with a vegan cookbook author, and we cooked a meal together.
Oh,
And just stuff like that, where it's like you can come, you can ask me questions. There's weekly content depending on what level you're at. There's monthly
uh-huh.
content. There's a lot there. So if you're looking for that, please reach out or check it out, because I really love the idea of having like this more insular community, not to like keep it
Right.
exclusive, but partly a little bit, like to like, this is where we get more and more.
Right.
It's fun.
What's probably your favorite thing you post on your Patreon? Like, what's the funnest thing you did that you got to post there?
Hmm. That's a great question, Connor. This is gonna, people that are listening, if they were patrons in the very beginning in 2020, throwback.
There we go.
I've gotten to do a lot of cool things that I appreciate getting to share with that community. But during the pandemic, I started doing what I eat in a day videos.
Mhm.
Like every week, I would post one to Patreon, and it was keeping me accountable for eating better during the pandemic. It was a really fun way to share, like, what am I actually eating? That was a lot of questions that I would get. I haven't done one in a
Right.
while, but I actually really enjoyed doing them. So now that you're asking me
Uh,
that, maybe I'll do a throwback and do a couple of those again. Cause then it's like you get to explain a little bit more and share why, instead of just like a quick Instagram.
right. You know, it is fun.
Hmm.
Uh, so for your the lowest tier, how much does that cost?
$2 a month.
Okay. And what do you get on the lowest tier?
So for $2 a month, you get a weekly tarot card pull. So for my woo-woo folks out there that like that a little bit, I just like to start every Monday with like a message that we can all think about. That's kind of that mindfulness piece, right? Like, all
Uh,
right, let's think of like a message to guide us for the week. What does that mean to me? Just take a moment to pause. And then you get discount codes, early access to all the stuff I do at that tier.
okay.
And then it goes up from there.
Sounds like a good offering.
Thanks, I agree.
And then so just for my viewers, what else do you do with Conscious Carly?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I am so used to interviewing. I'm really bad at getting interviewed. So I'm sorry if I
I mean,
kind of,
it's a dual interview too. It's not normal.
yeah, I know. I'm just like, let me ask you questions. La, 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 la. I know how to do this. Um, Yeah, so Consciously Carly is my business, and it houses the podcast Consciously Clueless. I obviously love a good alliteration. And I am a conscious living coach. So that means I help people with the three kind of pillars I've identified of conscious living: mindfulness, sustainability, and veganism or plant-based living. And I can
Uh,
help with one piece of that or all the pieces of that, depending on what people are interested in. I'm a yoga instructor. I teach classes
okay.
locally and I have a Get More Mindful bundle, a resource
Okay.
that if you're like mindfulness and meditation yoga, that sounds scary, kind of an intro on my website. So yeah, I really just kind of with you in terms of the mission driven. I just want to keep showing people that the way we take care of ourselves can be a way to also take care of the world and take care of each other. And those two things don't have to be in opposition.
Right.
So yeah, just doing all that I can, working on some new fun projects and just trying to make that grow as much as I can.
It sounds fun because it's also, you're one of the few that I've seen that's like, from the conscious side of it, at least that advertises it that way. And I guess just to bounce the same question off you, do you
Mhm.
have anything big that you have coming forward or that you would like to foreshadow?
Well, yeah, actually, since we're doing a quick turnaround on this episode, I'm so used to trying to like think far out. I'm like, what will be
uh,
happening in a couple months? But I'm hosting a free masterclass
mm,
on September 28th called What's Mindfulness Got to Do with It? So actually kind of
mm,
hearkening to all of that, like sustainability, veganism, why are you talking about mindfulness? I'm going to explain that and bring us through a
okay.
practice, teach you about why it matters, and show you how to bring some more mindfulness into your life. That's free. It's on my website, and Instagram is probably the best way to
Uh,
keep in touch consciously Carly with everything going on.
uh,
And then a new series on the podcast called Consciously Cannabis will be
oh, I saw
launching
that.
soon. Yep, because we're legal in Minnesota. Yeah,
Mm.
folks in California, you're like, welcome to the world. So yeah, I'm
Yeah, you
excited
should.
about looking at that through the lens of conscious living.
Yeah, no, that sounds like it fits right in.
I would agree.
So the master class is through your website,
Yeah, well,
or
actually,
you?
after I said that, I was like, did I hit publish? So I'm hoping by the time, not hoping, I'm going
Okay.
to make it by the time this comes out that yes, that will be on the website, but it's all on my Instagram and Facebook and everything too.
Okay, that's good. We'll make sure to put that somewhere in the description or maybe the end of the video, make it easy to get there.
That sounds great. I appreciate that.
Of course. I think the other thing I was thinking is maybe since it's a dual interview, we worked on the guide to get everything. Maybe it's like if someone like rates maybe both our podcasts, because those ratings are important, and maybe like shares the guide. I would put together maybe like 10 people free to sign up for your Patreon. Could do that.
Oh,
So
wow,
the
that's amazing.
low tier, and then I think it would just be you make the first 10 to sign up free, right? And then I would just shoot you the money, I think.
I
Because I think
think
if,
I've never
yeah,
done something like that, but I love the
mhm.
idea of looking
I
into
mean, we'll
that.
figure it out.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thank you for that offer. That's amazing.
Yeah, mutual beneficial. The guide gets more attention. Both podcasts get rated because those really help. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
then,
I have you been getting ratings lately? All of a sudden I have like just not been getting ratings and
you know,
reviews.
not a whole lot, but also I have to admit we have been not posting since the person left. So
You haven't had a new episode for a while, a couple months,
yeah,
right?
yeah, my coworker's actually been bugging me about it. He surprised me. He named like how many days it's been, and I was like, that's like,
You're like, that's aggressive.
he's probably just like, how long has it been? And looked, but I was like, hey, it's nice to have someone that cares that much. You know,
True, very true. I'd been like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
I'd be like, I'm on it, man. All right,
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm
I'm
trying.
figuring things out.
I
But yeah,
appreciate
so
that. I really love everything you're doing. I think you're a great human.
thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, everything gets more that way. The podcast get more ratings, the guide gets more views, and then more people get to find other vegans. They get the community. So it's a
Totally.
win-win-win.
Yeah, totally. I love that. I'll make sure to post a lot about the guide, tagging
Mm.
you. And do you, not to pressure you or sound like your coworker, but do you have an idea of when the podcast is coming back or a goal?
You know, I'll probably put, I did the big step on putting everything back up because unfortunately we like repainted the house and everything, so I had to take it down.
Oh
But
no.
now that everything's up, I'll probably, just get more, because I can just come in and record rather than having to set everything up.
Right.
I'll probably put this one out next week too, or I could put out the
Okay.
next week. That way we can stagger the release and gets more attention. Because then I could
Sure.
just promote yours, and that way it's a longer kind of promotion of the guide. I think that way.
Hell yeah. And then I'll
So
highlight yours when it comes out the following week in my newsletter as well and
awesome.
push to your link and all that stuff.
Yeah, that way it's not like our stories are just going to be like your episode, my episode, your episode. So we
Yeah.
could stagger it a little
Share,
bit.
share, 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 share.
Yeah. So yours comes out next Wednesday. I'll put mine out. We do Friday, so I'll put out the next Friday.
Sounds great. That's awesome.
Yep, and see, just like buying the stuff and getting into it, I'll post it that way. I have to post one next week. The clock has started. I can't just keep pushing it out.
There you go. There you go. This is the pressure.
Yep, we did
Good
it.
pressure, healthy pressure.
Yeah, there has to be some, or you just sit there.
Totally. I could not agree more. This was really fun. I'm excited to find ways to keep collaborating in the
Yeah,
future because I think both of our missions are pretty aligned.
yeah, we'll definitely keep in contact. Maybe we'll work on another resource for the resource center.
Yeah, that would be really awesome.
Yeah. Is there
Sweet.
anything else you
Well,
wanted to bring up?
I can't think of anything. Thank you for making me answer questions and not be such a psycho and only interview. I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think that we really got into the stuff I was hoping to talk about. So I feel good about it.
Yeah. I think it was a good episode.
Awesome. Well, I hope you have a good rest of your day and I
You
will
too.
chat with you soon.
Yes. Thank you.
All
Talk
right.
to you
See you
soon.
later.
See you.